So, this is a bottle of single malt whiskey, the Glenlivet Founders Reserve. As for the name, it says single malt Scotch whiskey. Now, all these three words have a lot of meaning to it. Single, that means it is made from a single distillery. Malt is only a particular barley has been used for making this particular whiskey, and Scotch means Scotland. Basically, this whiskey is made in Scotland. That's why it is called the Scotch whiskey. Now let's get to the video. So basically, what is a whiskey? A lot of people think it is an alcoholic beverage. Of course, it is an alcoholic beverage, but how is this alcoholic beverage made? So basically, alcoholic beverages are classified under two categories, and that is fermented and distilled. Now, fermentation is a natural process of converting yeast into carbon dioxide and alcohol. This alcohol is called the ethyl alcohol or ethanol. This is the consumable alcohol for humans. The other process is the distilled method of making alcohol, that is towards unnatural, or it is not a natural process. Basically, what happens, the distilled spirit is basically nothing but it is heated, and since alcohol evaporates at a much lower temperature than the water, so the alcohol evaporates and it condenses and it is stored in another container. So that is all about fermented and distilled. So basically, whiskey is a distilled alcoholic beverage. How is whiskey made? Basically, whiskey is made with grains. There are three basic requirements for whiskey. First one is water, you need grains, and you need yeast. How does the process go? For particularly, I am talking about this whiskey. This is a Glenlivet. This is a single malt whiskey. That means barley has been used. There is no other grains that has been used for this particular whiskey. Now, first process is that it's called the malting process. What they do, they take the barley, they soak it in the water, they spread it. Now what happens in this process is that the barley, it starts germinating. Once it starts germinating, then it becomes soft. Now this particular barley, after getting germinated, it is taken to another room where it is heated. Now what happens during this heat? The water evaporates, and this particular room, it creates a smoky environment. Now this is the same kind of smoky flavor that you might get when you're having a whiskey. After this process, this particular barley is again taken to another container where hot water is added. Now during this process, this is called the mash. This mash contains sugar. After the mash has been completely mixed with the water, yeast is added. What kind of yeast is added? Basically, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, it is called. This yeast is particularly added to that mash, and then of course the yeast will eat the sugar, and during this process it gets converted to alcohol and carbon dioxide. Now once this entire liquid containing alcohol, the process is complete, what they do, they take this liquid, which is of course very thick, they take it and they put it into another container where it is called the still. It's actually a copper container where they heat the entire mash, and since I already told you, the alcohol will rise. Now after the alcohol rises, it's called the distillation process. It falls into another container. From that container again they heat, and the final alcohol that comes out after the condensation, that is whiskey. Basically that liquid is completely colorless. This is because that is the purest form of alcohol. Now how does the whiskey get the color? Now the whiskey gets color from this oak. It's called the oak. It's called the, for this particular whiskey it is American oak selection. That means American oak has been used. Basically the color comes from the oak. Normally whiskeys, after the distillation process, it is sent for aging. Now this aging takes place in a oak, mostly oaks that has been already used in processing sherries. They are used for single malt whiskey. Now once they are put in the oaks, wooden oaks, the pigments present in the oaks, they get mixed with the clear distilled whiskey. After 3 years, that is the minimum time that is required for the aging, otherwise it won't be called a Scotch whiskey. 3 years is the minimum. During this time the entire liquid turns golden. As you all see, the whiskey is golden in color. So that is about whiskey. So now let's open it and see how it tastes and what are the notes. Let's get to the So now it is time to unbox this. Just open it. Can't wait for the bottle. Okay, this is the bottle of whiskey. So same thing that is mentioned in the packet, that is the same thing which is mentioned over here. The alcoholic percentage is 40%, not for pregnant ladies. Let's open this. It needs to be cut because it has special silver cover, silver coating. I need to cut this. Finally I managed to open it, and I'll just pour just a little bit of whiskey, the single malt Glenlivet. As for the normal standard, whiskey is best taken neat without adding any chasers, but just to enhance the flavors, I'll add little bit of water to it. Now let's see the tasting notes. Okay, so I have this whiskey, single malt whiskey, Glenlivet Founders Reserve, and this particular whiskey needs some time. Once you pour, you have to swill it so that the flavors, the aromas, they can come out. So let's see what there are. Basically 3 notes. One is the nose, one is the palate, and one is the finish. So I'll go through all the 3 notes of tasting the whiskey. So it smells like heaven. Citrus, orange, mostly the smell is towards citrus. And let's see how it tastes on the palate. It's a like the taste is nuts, like a lot of nut flavors. And yeah, it's already gone down and I can feel the warmth. Let's see what is the finish. Finish is plum cake. It tastes like a Christmas cake. It tastes like very smooth, well balanced, and the feeling is great. It is a type of whiskey that should be really enjoyed. You can't just have it anyway. You need to spend a lot of time with this. It really tastes great. So I would suggest everyone to try this once in your life. And yeah, thanks for watching my video. Do subscribe and yeah, drink sensibly.